don't you come over to the Tur-Briske-Fil? And he just starts crying
Yeah.
and runs off. And apparently it's not because of the Tur-Briske-Fil, but it was just...
I like Howard, he's just like, you don't have to eat it.
Yeah.
I swallow it like pills.
I swallow like pills. Oh, man.
Welcome to Theoretical Nonsense, the Big Bang Theory watch-along podcast. No PhD required.
We're the podcast that recaps all the episodes of The Big Bang Theory. No spoilers.
So hop into your favorite spot
Make yourself a grasshopper
and enjoy the ride. Hello there, Ryan.
Hello, Rob.
How are you?
I'm doing pretty well. How about yourself?
I'm doing great because we just watched Season 3, Episode 4, The Pirate Solution.
Oh, yeah.
For any new listeners out there, I'm Rob, this is my co-host Ryan, and we are Theoretical Nonsense, the podcast that recaps, reviews, and deep dives facts from the Big Bang Theory, which we call IQ points. As a reminder to everyone, I've seen the series multiple times, but this is Ryan's first time watching, so we do our best to do no spoilers. And Ryan has been told that he's very similar to Sheldon, so we keep a point tally of how close Ryan is to Sheldon.
And looking at that, I am at 72 points not like him and 75 being like him.
Okay.
And, it was brought up in an email that, it's going to be kind of interesting because, no spoilers, and I don't know what's going to happen, but it's clear that Sheldon's going to change. Characters do develop throughout shows. And I'm curious, will I, be...
Develop and grow as a human being?
Yeah, am I going to be more like him? And, as we do this, it's by the time we get to Season 5, it's going to be in a couple of years, right? And what am I going to be like? Am I going to be more like him or more different than him or more like he is in the show at that point? So, we just go with it and see what happens. But I'm liking the system so far. But it's a really good question that... people change, so maybe I'll be even more like Sheldon. Maybe I'll be less like him, or maybe I'll be more like me.
Yeah. Speaking of which, in addition to that email, we also got another email.
Oh yeah.
Should we go through them now?
Yeah.
Yeah. Did you want to read this one from Bridget?
Sure, I can do Bridget. Okay, she says, "Hi guys. I've been listening for about 6 months now. I caught up on all the podcasts just before Christmas, and as a kindergarten teacher, I have 2 weeks off and am using that time to re-listen to the pod from the beginning at 1.4 speed. I gave you a 5-star rating on Spotify a few months back, but I know there is no way to track that, so I wanted to let you know. Anyways, before break, my husband, son, and I were driving out of our neighborhood and came to a 3-way intersection. A school bus full of middle schoolers was stopped to the right of us, and since we were going to turn left, he wondered if we could just go. And I brought up the discussion you had back in Season 2, Episode 7, about turning right when a school bus is stopped to the left of you coming towards you. In the end, I told him to just wait it out for the safety of the kids. Then we heard a loud pop and a car shot out from the grassy area next to the bus on the side the kids would have exited the bus. We thought it had run over a large bottle or something like that until a person walking by asked if we heard a gunshot. We thought they were crazy until we got home that night and read that a kid was being bullied by someone on the bus and texted their mom about it. The mom showed up and parked where the bus was going to stop and tried to get on the bus to fight the kid and the bus driver. When she couldn't get on, she shot at the bus and drove off, right in front of us and all of the kids on the bus. The mom is now in jail and awaiting trial, but when I got to this episode in my re-listen, I thought I would share my story. You both are amazing, and I love all the hard work you put into the podcast. Thank you for all the hours and hours of entertainment. Keep up the great work. Lots of loves and laughs, Bridget." Thank you very much, Bridget. That was a great email.
That's a crazy email. And if you're a new listener, this is relevant because we actually had a discussion about school buses and how you're supposed to stop. I had a bus driver yell at me because I thought I could turn at a certain point, but apparently in the state that I'm at, I wasn't allowed to.
He like tracked you back to your house, right? He followed
He did.
you.
He followed me to my house, waited till I got out of the car just to like lecture me, and I smiled and nodded, and now I know something. I'm closer to that PhD. And also, we have our own true crime story that we tell, that we're updating on. So, Bridget, we are definitely going to need more updates. So, as you get more updates, if you're going to follow this trial, which I encourage you to, please give us updates.
We are becoming a true crime podcast, little by little.
I'm trying to turn this into a food podcast, but it's turning into a true crime one. All right, and the second email is from Rick, who has emailed us several times. So thanks again for your email. Rick says, "Hi, Robert and Ryan. Listening to episode 44 and have a few more ideas for you. Take your leave as you wish. I think the Sheldon watch could be tweaked a little bit. Though no spoilers, I'd say Sheldon goes through multiple changes over the years. And a series run, you'll find some old tendencies Sheldon don't track later on. So what you match in season 1 isn't the same in season 6. So I'd think a total for each season would be better. Am I like Sheldon season 4 or season 2? You could even have a final tally of which season Sheldon was more like you than the others. You can still keep the overall tally, and this is how I'd envision the end. My point tally shows me overall not like Sheldon by 456 to 457, but I was like him in seasons 1 through 8 and 10, unlike him in 9, 11, was tied. And I wish you could make this more frequent. And going over my favorite podcasts, I think the best version for busy people was weekly for 3 weeks, a week off repeat. Not a bad idea. And because I use The Big Bang Theory as a bad dream preventer, a belly laugh before sleep works wonders. I was watching season 1, episode 17, The Tangerine Factor, and thinking how the entire Sheldon plot was silly. It's so easy to tell the differences between tangerine chicken and orange chicken. Tangerine chicken tastes fresh and spicy, but orange chicken tastes sweet and sour. Orange chicken is crispy cooked in a sweet and little spicy orange sauce. One is breaded and the other is not. I think his actual argument was they were making a tangerine chicken, but using orange or tangelos instead of tangerines. So I think that IQ point could be updated. Keep up the good work, Rick.
I have to say, I do have actually the IQ points listed by season. I just haven't, and it's in Excel, so I could easily put up an equation and figure out what it is per season. And so we can have those numbers too and kind of track as things go along. That shouldn't be a problem at all. I can do that pretty quickly this week.
Yeah, I think that's a good update.
I was thinking too about this. I agree that a belly laugh before bed is good, and I was thinking about this the other day because I was reading. It started with an unsolved mystery that I was watching right before bed from the 80s about a demon haunting kids, and then I started going into like unsolved mysteries and murders and Skinwalker Ranch and stuff. And I'm like, maybe this is why I have nightmares, like sleep paralysis type things. Maybe I should watch like Big Bang Theory, Frasier Friends, or something before bed, not murder mysteries and demons. Oopsie daisies.
I fully agree with that. You should definitely not do true crime. Well, don't forget to email us at theoreticalnonsensepod@gmail.com. Leave us a review on Spotify or Apple, and follow us on Instagram and TikTok at theoreticalnonsensepod. And shall we dive into the episode?
Yeah, I think so. So this was Season 3, Episode 4, The Pirate Solution. It aired October 12th, 2009. Directed by Mike Zendrowski, written by Chuck Lorre, Bill Prady, and Steve Holland. So we open up and they are watching Gremlins, which I thought was kind of weird at first because I consider that a Christmas movie first and foremost. More Christmas than Die Hard. It has lots of Christmas stuff. But Sheldon says the movie doesn't make sense because the instructions are very clear. And if you know the instructions for gremlins, you don't feed them after midnight. You don't get them wet. You also don't expose them to bright lights. They don't like bright lights. That will kill them. But if you feed them after midnight, they go into a cocoon and become from like a little furry creature into like a monster creature, a reptilian creature. And if they get wet, they multiply. Little balls come out of their backs and grow into other gremlins. So he's kind of right that the rules are really, really clear. But then again, the people who ended up with Gizmo, the first gremlin, really didn't know what they had and were just fucking around and finding out, I guess. It's kind of a statement on not caring about other cultures and just doing what you want and the dangers that come along with that. So, but he's right. Penny comes in and calls Leonard honey, and they get into a discussion because technically she does call some people sweetie, but sweetie is reserved when she also has a veiled insult. And this is when she calls Sheldon sweetie. She says, like, you're boring everybody, sweetie, right? He's like, oh, it's not even veiled that time. And she figures out that they are celebrating Columbus Day, which is interesting because now it's called Indigenous People Day, right? So it doesn't even, that joke doesn't even carry on now. But apparently they're watching Goonies, Gremlins, and young Sherlock Holmes. And I did my first IQ point about this because I didn't really know who Chris Columbus was. Did you?
I did, yeah. I'm very familiar with his work. So I didn't do research on Chris Columbus, but I did the movies that he wrote. And because I was wondering why they chose those 3 movies when there's so many other movies to pick. Not that those are bad movies, but it's like, what would I have picked? So that's what I did a little bit of research on. I wasn't going to call it an IQ point, but we can, since you did some research.
I would say with our powers combined, it can be an IQ point.
Yeah.
But I also thought it was weird because, what movies do you consider? The ones he writes, the ones he produces, or the one he directs? And sometimes those, conflict, which, for instance, the Goonies. For some reason, I was thinking Spielberg directed Goonies. He helped write it and, presented it, whatever that means, but he didn't direct it, so I always get confused with that. That and Poltergeist, that I always think Spielberg directed Poltergeist, but it was Tobe Hooper. So, yeah. So what did you get?
Well, I just looked at the ones that he wrote because they went with Gremlins, Goonies, and Young Sherlock Holmes. So it seems like they were just doing the ones that he actually wrote himself. So I wrote down the other movies that he wrote down. Or the other movies that he wrote.
He wrote them down at some point.
Yeah, he definitely wrote it down back in the day, or typed it. Typewriter. He did, in 1984, Reckless. Then came Gremlins, Goonies, and Young Sherlock Holmes between 1984 and 1985. Then The Heartbreak Hotel in 1988. Little Nemo, Adventures in Slumberland, 1989. I do remember that was a video game that I really liked on Nintendo.
I love that cartoon and I love that video game. It was one of my favorites as a kid. Throw candy at monsters and jump into their mouths and become them. It's like the reverse of Kirby. You let the monsters eat you.
And then he did Only the Lonely in 1991, 9 Months in 1995, Christmas with the Cranks in 2004, and Christmas Chronicles 2 in 2020. But this is back in 2009, so that shouldn't really be on the list at this point, but it is. And then, like I said, of all those, I was like, why didn't they just expand it to stuff that he also directed too? Because if they did that, they could have had Home Alone 2, Mrs. Doubtfire, Harry Potter 1 and 2, Rent, amongst so much more. So it's like, I wonder, but then again, they probably just really like Gremlins, Goonies, and Young Sherlock Holmes.
That could be. But, I stand with you that when we think of attributing movie credits to people, usually directing is the top notch. And, it's like Quentin Tarantino. Nobody knows that he wrote the movie True Romance. But everybody knows he directed Reservoir Dogs, right? Or Pulp Fiction. And so it's like, no, yeah, I think
Yeah, nobody really pays attention to who writes stuff. It's all about directing because it's the
Yeah.
director who interprets it and kind of builds the vision.
But for what it's worth, Goonies and Gremlins are great. I've never seen Young Sherlock Holmes. I don't know about that one.
I have not either. But if I was celebrating Columbus Day in this fashion, I definitely would have gone the Harry Potter route.
The Harry Potter.
Yep.
That's it's weird because he did Harry Potter and he also did the Percy Jackson, right? With Alexander.
Oh, is Percy Jackson on there?
I think so.
I don't recall seeing that on the list. I must have just.
He's got a lot of stuff.
I know his list was long.
I loved Adventures in Babysitting too. So there were options. There were other options.
Yeah. But speaking of Percy Jackson, did you start the new series?
No, I haven't.
I watched the first episode because I read all the books. I even read the Roman series too.
Oh.
Yeah, I don't know if you're familiar with it, but like Percy Jackson, like the first series of books were all in Greek mythology, but then it starts expanding into Roman mythology too because they kind of coincide. And then there's like
I'm familiar a little bit.
They're good. I mean, they're great books for audiobooks because they're like young teenager books and everything like that. So it's actually very simple to pay attention to as you're driving. So if anyone's looking for a good audiobook, because it actually is very, well, somewhat, maybe 80% historically accurate with real Greek mythology. They did throw in some stuff there that's like, well, you're kind of just dancing over like the truth a little bit because the truth is a lot darker than what they want to portray into kids stuff.
There's a
but
lot
I
of
do recommend
consensual sex in the traditional mythology.
Yep.
Yeah. So,
but I do recommend a little too much of that. Yep. But I do recommend those audiobooks. But anyways, back to Chris Columbus. Anything else?
I thought it was interesting that he wrote. He wrote and directed Christmas Chronicles too, right? I haven't seen that one. I saw the first one, and he had nothing to do with the first one. So it's like, what made him decide to pick up on a sequel? I hear
maybe he lost a bet.
He lost a bet. I don't know. Maybe he just wanted to work with what's his name, Kurt Russell.
Yeah.
I don't know. I always call him Snake Plissken because he inspired Metal Gear Solid. Do you know that?
Yep.
Yeah. So like that's Santa Claus is Snake. Wow. But I did like the first one, so it made me want to watch that second one. I just haven't done it yet.
And Christmas just passed. You didn't want to throw it on your list?
I was so busy, and I had other movies I had to watch too, and I'm just trying to get them all taken care. In fact, I finished up one that I started last year called Silent Night with Keira Knightley, where there's like this toxin in the air that they don't really know where it came from, maybe like a terrorist attack in Britain, and it's this family having a Christmas party, and they all have their like cyanide pills, and they're ready to take them because taking a cyanide pill is going to be less painful than breathing in the chemical that's in the air. Have you heard that one?
No, but it does not sound like a Merry Christmas.
Wasn't. I enjoyed watching it, but like I didn't finish it last year, so I had to pick up halfway in this year. I'm like, okay, like caught back up. It was a fun movie, but it's kind of not merry. All right, so that's about all I had on Columbus as well. Okay, so she asked, if you watch these on.
She asked what they watch on Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
Like, oh, you're watching this? What are you watching on Thanksgiving?
The parade, of course.
Duh.
Which is weird because I don't see them as being the type to watch the parade either. So,
but I've never watched a Thanksgiving parade. Never.
Passed
Have you?
By my channel flipping. I've seen like a float here or there, but I've never sat down and just like binged the whole thing.
Yeah,
that's never happened.
I have no interest in watching a parade. I'm sorry for any parade fans out there, but I have no interest.
Yeah, maybe if I was there in person watching it and drinking, I could see that being a spectacle. But on TV, and I don't know, just I get bored easily, I guess. So
Yeah.
Penny mentions that she usually goes home for Thanksgiving, but this year they are calling it off because of her brother's trial. And everybody looks at her kind of strangely, and this episode made me laugh out loud a whole bunch. I loved this episode. I was laughing a lot. And she goes, "Oh, you'd probably get along with him. He's kind of a chemist." So I'm guessing like it's a Breaking Bad type thing, making some meth.
Yeah, I took that too.
But she said it's a misunderstanding. But still,
sure it is.
So I'm hoping this plays out later, but she says that she's going to have her own Thanksgiving and she invites them all. And Sheldon brings up if she's going to have cranberry jelly or cranberry sauce. This is where IQ.2 comes in. Did you do anything on this one?
No.
Okay, so
I'm curious of what you even found to research on this.
Pretty straightforward. Well, part of the reason I did this is because I came across a random fact just a couple days ago, and starting to talk about cranberries made me like, shit, I got to make that an IQ point. So I'll get to that random fact. Makes cranberries so much more fun. But jelly versus sauce, I always kind of thought they were the same thing, and they basically are. But sauce is considered the more liquefied stuff that falls apart. And jelly is the stuff that like takes a mold. So the stuff that you squirt out of a can and it's still in the shape of the can, that's jellied. And according to Scientific America, which apparently has like a really cool, not prank, exercise experiment that you can do at home, basically has you cook the cranberries, and the longer you cook them, the more the cranberries break down. The more the cranberries break down, the more pectin gets released. And pectin is what gets used to kind of gelidify substances. So you'll notice that the sauces have more fuller cranberries still in them. And the jelly will have no cranberries. It's more of just like a jello with not as many pieces because they're all broken down already. So it really comes down to how long have the cranberries been cooked. Oh yeah, and it says plus, if you cook them longer, more water boils off, and if you have more water boil off, you have a thicker substance. So that's another reason it becomes thicker. The second thing, the tidbit was, and I found this backed up on lots of websites, but animalsandhope.com, that cranberries grow in bogs. And bogs have a lot of bugs. And so a natural predator of bugs are spiders. Wolf spiders are used to help keep the bug population down in cranberry bogs, basically bog spiders, which means that anybody harvesting cranberries will be covered in wolf spiders, that they crawl down their overalls and into their pants and up their heads. It's like nonstop. You never see those in pictures, but apparently it's a known thing. And so now every time I'm going to eat cranberry sauce, I'm going to think of giant wolf spiders.
Oh my god, I had no idea. I will really appreciate my cranberry sauce now. That is like a terrifying job. I wonder if that was featured on Dirty Jobs or something like that. It's like,
and technically, I mean, wolf spiders aren't that venomous, but they do have some irritation if they bite you. They're not really aggressive. Kansas, I used to catch them and keep them as pets because they would get so big. And they look kind of like tarantulas, but they never bit me or anything. This is probably why I read scary stories before I go to bed. I'm keeping.
I know you had such an interesting childhood.
It was different. Yeah. So cranberries, spiders, and pectin. IQ.2.
Well, so what you're saying is, I guess, when you're explaining that, you're saying that as it cooks down even more, the pectin is released. For the canned jelly, I always thought that they added gelatin. Are you saying that the canned stuff is just cooked down and liquefied and then canned and then it just turns into the mold?
That's my understanding, is that the cranberries are dissolved so much, more pectin is released and it turns more into a
mold
type. Yeah, a mold.
Okay, I just assumed that there was just gelatin added to like the juices of it to like turn into a mold. Granted, I've never actually analyzed the label and the ingredient statement, so I have no idea.
Have it, but
I'm sure the cheaper ones do, because that's a lot of like, that seems like a lot of labor to continuously cook it down.
Like, in the jellies and spread section where some of them are like really loose and some of them like you have to scoop out with a spoon or whatever. It explains that the berries get cooked down more or less depending on if you want preserves or jelly or whatever.
Are you a jelly or sauce guy on Thanksgiving?
I love the can. I love how it keeps the mold of the can, and I love how people are like, that's not what do they call it? It's not fancy. It's I don't know. People think it looks stupid. I'm like, I love it, and the fact that they think it looks stupid makes me love it even more. So
I always think about Marty Crane in Frasier, because like when Daphne made cranberry sauce, he was like, "Why isn't it in the shape of a can? What's going on?" But I like the sauce with the food, but I kind of like to eat the canned stuff by itself, like a dessert.
I could see that. Yeah. I think the canned stuff also has more sugar in it, but I could be wrong on that. I think the cranberry sauce...
I'm sure it does. Yeah, I'm sure it does.
That's probably why I like cutting
I know,
off
that's why it's
slices.
like a dessert. I know, it's like you slice it and... Yeah. It's like a little loaf.
It's a little cranberry loaf. But with that said, I've had some cranberry sauces with like bits of orange in it that are just dynamite. It's just if I have to choose, the canned stuff is where I'm loyal to the canned stuff.
Okay.
Okay, so she says that they can have both of them for Thanksgiving. And again, I'm really hopeful that this is leading to a Thanksgiving episode because I love holiday episodes. And then Howard says that he's going to have to miss it because his mother always has family over it, and they have a Tur-Briske-Fil.
A Tur-Briske-Fil. Yeah.
Tur-Briske-Fil, that's what it is. Turkey, brisket, and gefilte fish.
Gefilte fish, yeah.
Gefilte fish, that's what
Yeah.
I was laughing so hard at this. And he smiles and he goes, it's not as good as it sounds.
I've actually, so I did a little bit of research on this because, like, I actually have made several. It's a play on a turducken, and I've made my share of turduckens. I've made probably over 10 turduckens in my life, just because, like, I love them. I love turkey, I love chicken and duck. I've never done a Tur-Briske-Fil. I'm not opposed to it, but I have never had gefilte fish. Have you? Like, I always see it in jars at the store, and I'm always like, I don't even want to touch that.
I wasn't even sure what it is. Is it like pickled fish or?
Well, I looked into it a little bit. Historically, it was random pieces of like different whitefish, all kind of chopped up and then stuffed in the skin of another fish, and then it's cooked, and then it's kind of formed into patties and everything. So it's almost kind of like a cooked oven cooked braised patty, like fish patty or something like that. And hey, I eat fish cakes. It's all good.
With the cranberries fact on the website that I was reading, it was like BuzzFeed or something, a list of random facts. Is somebody referred to imitation crab meat as fish hot dogs because it's like all the random pieces
Facts.
of fish. Like,
yep, I called them that too because that's all they are. It's just it's not like I don't even think there's actually crab in it.
Some food dye and random fish.
Still love it.
So, yeah,
hey, California rolls. Still love it. But yeah, that's what a gefilte fish is. So I'm not opposed to that, but to me, I don't think I would ever risk making this because the brisket is such like an expensive piece of meat that it's like, man, I wouldn't want to ruin it in the event that this goes wrong.
It seems difficult too because the turkey is to maintain hygiene and food safety. The cooking temperatures are so different between turkey, brisket, and fish that I don't know how you could get anything done and still get the turkey to a safe temperature. Like everything would be burned to a crisp. I had my own theory, but I wanted to see what other people do because people on the internet do everything. So I had to look it up to see if somebody actually made a Tur-Briske-Fil. And the crazy thing is, I don't think anybody did or anybody has because there's no information. I
dedicated more time to this than I should have. I think I dedicated the most time onto this in quote IQ point, and it's an in quote IQ point because I didn't really learn anything. But I'm calling it an IQ point just because, like I said, I'm going to turn this into a food cast. But I was searching high and low for pictures and to see what people did, some videos and everything like that. Because, like, I'm shocked that Binging with Bobbish didn't even do this because he does crazy shit on TV all the time. But at least I never found anything on this. But because I found some websites that talk about it. But then once you actually read the directions on how they actually do it, it's like, dude, you didn't make this. You would not do it like that. That's not how this would go down. You don't like just AI shove it
creating something stupid.
Yeah, it's like, dude, you're the directions are to just shove it through the cavity of the boned turkey. It's like, that's not going to happen. That's not going to physically fit.
Yeah.
And then you're supposed to take the patties and gently shove it in. It's like, dude, you've never made a turducken, have you? So it's like, because when you make a turducken, for anybody interested in making a turducken, you basically have to debone all the birds. You basically have to like start at the back and carve around all the bones. So it's basically like a sheet of meat. And then you just fold them on top of each other. And then you have to sew it shut and then bake it. So I was thinking, in the event that someone was to be crazy enough to make this, I think you would have to make the brisket separately. You'd probably want to smoke it or braise it separately just so it's fully cooked and tender. And then you're going to want to chill it. And then you're going to want to make your sheet of meat, of turkey, and then you're going to lay the brisket on top of it, then put the gefilte fish patties on top of it, and then start wrapping it. Because if you wrap, because then you treat it like a pre-cooked stuffing. Yeah. So you still have to get the internal temperature to 165, but then the brisket's already done. So you're essentially just reheating it and going through a kill step. So that's kind of like what I was thinking, but then no website, because I found multiple sites, and it's funny because the second site that I found, I got super excited because I thought it was they really did it. They had a picture and everything, but then once you But the crazy thing is, like, once you look at it, it's like, no, that's a turducken. That's duck meat. That's not a gefilte fish. That's not a brisket. and then the recipe was written the exact, like, it was literally copied and pasted from the first website. I was like, man, no one did a Tur-Briske-Fil? Are we going to have to do a Tur-Briske-Fil?
You know, if somebody sends us a decent recipe, I might be willing to try it.
I think I can make one up. Like, if you're up for it, we'll put this on the back burner. But when you come and visit me in the summertime,
last year was a brisket. We're moving things up a level.
A Tur-Briske-Fil. We could try. I do have a vision in my head, and I think we could do it. I might have to buy the turkey now, though, because we're not going to find a turkey in the middle of summer.
Maybe a live one. Just go out hunting.
Actually, yeah, I was test driving some cars the other day, and I actually passed by an entire flock of wild turkeys.
There's something. Every now and then, we have a friend who has a cabin up on the other side of the mountains, and every now and then they just walk a big herd of them by his cabin. Like, I don't know where they're going, but they look tender and juicy. That's for sure.
They look lean and scary.
That's true too. Okay, so
that's what I had. That's what I had on Tur-Briske-Fil. So like I said, I don't think anybody has actually done it, or if they have, they didn't post anything on the internet, which is crazy. Why wouldn't you blast that everywhere?
If you're gonna do it, you get some publicity for it, right?
Yeah. So we need to hop on this. We need to do it.
This is it's gonna pass us by.
Yeah.
All right, so Howard, don't you come over to the Tur-Briske-Fil? And he just starts crying.
Yeah.
And runs off. And apparently it's not because of the Tur-Briske-Fil, but it was just...
I like Howard, he's just like, you don't have to eat it. Yeah. I swallow it like pills.
I swallow it like pills. Oh, man. I don't chew it. I swallow it like pills. Wow. Yeah, that was a great intro. So the intro comes through, and then Howard's coming back after checking on Raj and says that it's not a problem with the Tur-Briske-Fil. It's that Raj is getting deported. And Leonard says, what's that mean? Basically trying to figure out like what's going on. And Sheldon takes that seriously and says that it means he can either go to India, another country that will accept him, or wander the sea as a nationless sea pirate. And I did an IQ point on this, and I think he is wrong. I'm gonna call BS on this because from what I'm finding, sea nomads are not the same thing as pirates.
I thought he called them a pirate, though. Did he call it?
He said nationless pirate, right? Didn't write down the exact words, but I took it as him saying that pirates are like sea nomads or nationless. But technically, pirates come from nations, have nationality, and then spend a lot of time at sea stealing stuff.
Yep, you're right. He calls him a stateless pirate.
Stateless pirate. And the notion is we do have sea nomads, basically people born and living on the sea that have no nationality. And we have pirates who are people who have nationality, then go to sea to steal stuff and bring it back to their homeland or their homes. Which is kind of important because if they were sea nomad, they have very, very little interest for the physical goods that you can steal and sell for on land. Like, all they really care about is food, typically. But, you know, if you know more about this, send us an email. I could have gone down a really big rabbit hole on this, and I try to keep it short, but it was really, I thought it was interesting. According to minorityrights.org, there are a couple different populations of sea nomads. And I think it's interesting because they call them sea gypsies as well, but gypsy is a derogative term these days, right? It's a offensive term against the Romani people, insulting them. So a lot of people have stopped saying the word gypsy. But sea nomad works, and it's basically people who live their whole lives at sea and have their children at the sea, and they have houseboats on the sea, and they travel around. And from what I understood, there's 3 populations in Thailand. One was the main one that I was looking at is called Moken, Moken. And then in the Philippines, there's Philippines and Malaysia. There's a population called the Bajau, Bajau, which apparently there's several different words for this, and I was kind of getting confused over if this was like an umbrella term for all sea nomads or if it was a particular group, but it's also spelled Badjao. Like, there's a bunch of different ways, and then, like, it took me a while too when I was looking at different websites to know that it was talking about the same group, just spelling it and wording it differently. But they've basically been living at sea for thousands of years, and DNA traces them back to different places in southern Asia, I believe. And over the last few decades or even century, governments have kind of tried to stop this lifestyle, and they have gotten it down to, it says as of 2023, there's only like 100 to 200 people still living this on traditional houseboats like this. And there are some like major problems because technically, well, first of all, there's like a big stigma against them, and they are seen as like the lowest class. And if they come on land, people really stereotype and are racist against them, right? They bring them down, make fun of them, spit on them, so on and so on. But also, they lack legal rights. If something goes wrong, they can't take legal recourse because they have no nationality. They don't pay taxes, so the government doesn't care. And then also, they like can't get health care without a nationality. It's really hard to go see a doctor, so they're basically living at sea with no health care. So some governments, you know, I'd also probably say for legal reasons and tax reasons, they're trying to, there's a word for it, but force them into living on land and homing them.
Big Brother always wants their cut. That's what
exactly.
it is.
And yeah, but then on a website called, what is it called? SincheraFoundation.com, it basically talks about the Badajo, Badjao, are known for loving peace, and they run away from danger, which is completely the opposite of pirates who go into danger looking to steal stuff. And they live on seas where there are pirates, so they're constantly like trying to get away from the pirates. And basically, yeah, it's a tough lifestyle. And they basically fish, get lobster, shrimp, crab, or whatever, and trade it on land, and then go back and live at sea. But yeah, pirates are a completely different thing, and typically steal stuff so they can go and sell it on land where they live. That's my understanding. And when Sheldon also says he understands sea nomads are mostly male, from my understanding, sea nomads are both women and men. Pirates most likely are mostly male because, I don't know, it's stereotyping, but it's very aggressive and brutal and violent, and I think it's just known as a male activity. But again, that is different than sea nomads, which is more of a tribal way of living. Yeah.
I don't think he actually uses the term sea nomad, but based off the definition, it does seem like this should be called the sea nomad solution.
Right? It's kind of weird because, yeah, he would still technically have citizenship nationality in India, but he would be living at, even pirates, they don't live mainly at sea, right? They don't bring all the food to live nonstop on sea. They go home and sell stuff. They likely have homes and families. Sometimes.
Yeah, they basically live on land, but then they hop on a boat, go raid another boat, and then come back.
That's my understanding, but maybe there's some that are different. But yeah, I'm curious. This had a lot of more questions for me, and I also know that there's been people who've tried to set up, like, or so I've heard. I didn't read any about this, but set up like oil drills basically at sea as their own countries, and usually other countries like the US say, nope, you're not going to do that, and dismantle it pretty quickly. So,
I had dibs on that area. That's my oil.
This is Ryan land.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's a national defense issue. All right, so that's what I got on that. That there is some question there, and I'm not sure exactly what he was going for. But potentially you're right. Maybe he was just, I don't know, talking about pirates, and he could be... Okay, so anyways, they ask Penny to step out so Raj can come in and talk, and he comes back and says he's sorry that he lost his cool. And apparently he's found Squat researching predicted composition of Trans-Neptunian objects. And because of that, he's going to be deported because he's not going to have a job since he hasn't been able to find anything in his current job. And I did a little research on this as well. Did you look into Trans-Neptunian objects?
I did. I was, we actually did an IQ point on part of this a little bit. We did an IQ point, our episode 22, season 2, episode 4. We did it on the Kuiper Belt and why Pluto isn't a planet.
Yeah.
But this kind of expands that because I was wondering about his research. Like, what was he doing and why is he doing that? Mm-hmm. Predicted composition of Trans-Neptunian objects. It's like, why do we care about that? And how would he even go about doing it? So that's what I did some research on.
Go for it. Yeah, I think that's more than even I did. So I'm curious what you got.
So I found this on planetfacts.org. So to define what a trans-Neptunian object is, or what they shorthanded as a TNO, is an object or is any minor planet orbiting the sun in our solar system beyond Neptune or at a distance which is more than Neptune's on average. Known divisions of bodies beyond Neptune, which are still part of the solar system, are the Kuiper Belt, the scattered disk, and the Oort cloud. The most famous and first discovered trans-Neptunian object is Pluto. But since we already did this IQ point before, it kind of relates to this, so we're just going to kind of dive into it again. The Kuiper Belt, this is the asteroid... It's like the asteroid belt, but it's 20 times wider and 200 times as massive. It mostly contains small bodies or remnants from when the solar system formed. While many asteroids are composed primarily of rock and metal, most Kuiper Belt objects are composed of largely frozen volatiles, or ice, and methane, ammonia, and water. Pluto is classified as a dwarf planet and not a fully fledged planet because it has not cleared its neighboring region of other objects. This means that Pluto still has lots of asteroids and other space rocks along its flight path, rather than having absorbed them over time, like larger planets have done. So things should be revolving around Pluto in order for it to be a full-fledged planet. Neptune's orbit, populated by a few minor icy planets, it is widely believed to be the place of origin for the majority of periodic comets. And the Oort cloud is said to be the cloud of comets, and a majority of objects in this region are believed to be from the scattered disk as well.
But the Oort cloud is further away, right?
Correct.
All right.
So that's what a trans-Neptunian object is, but how and why would we want to research the composition of these TNOs? So I found this on fsi.ucf.edu, which is the Florida Space Institute. So it looks like after Raj dropped his research, Florida picked it up. So according to Dr. Naomi Pinilla Alonso, they tell us what we used to be. Since these are some of the most far-reaching edges of our solar system, the materials on the TNOs are pristine, untouched, and largely unchanged from their inception. In this way, they are like frozen time capsules, waiting for us to unveil their secrets. She continues to say, we want to see if the smaller TNOs contain some amounts of ice. We want to know which are the most abundant ices on these bodies, which materials are responsible for their different colors, how these materials are mixed. We want to know the recipe to cook a small icy body. To conduct this research, they use light. Using a near-infrared spectrograph on board the Webb telescope, called NIRSPEC. It's an acronym which stands for Near Infrared Spectrograph. Light from each of the objects is processed. Pinella Alonso breaks it down like this. NIRSPEC is going to observe in a part of the light that can't be reached for the TNOs from the Earth. Through this process, scientists and observers can distill the elements that are present on the surface of the TNOs, further expanding their knowledge of what makes up these bodies. And it takes about 4.6 hours for the light to reach the TNOs. To this day, we still don't have a great understanding of the composition of the TNOs. So pretty accurate that Raj was at risk of losing his job and a loss of funding. Mm-hmm. So that's pretty much what I found. It's like still being researched to this day. They haven't found a lot of stuff, but they're working on it.
I think we've talked about it, but have you watched any of The Expanse?
I've been one. It's on my list, but when I say it's on my list, I'm never going to get to it. My list is quite long, and my TV is full of baby stuff.
That's fair. Maybe when you're like 60 and you're retired. And
The Expanse is rebooted and redone and everything.
It's takes place in the future when humans are colonizing Mars, and also in the process of colonizing Mars, they are in the asteroid belt, which is the asteroids between Mars and Jupiter, basically mining stuff, like taking the resources from the asteroids and bringing them back to Earth and Mars to make stuff, and it becomes a political drama. It's also like a detective noir at times. It's weird. It's great. But there's politics playing where the people on Earth kind of see themselves as like superior to everybody else. The people on Mars are kind of treated and like belittled by the people on Earth, but they are, because they rely on Earth for clean water and food and stuff. But being on Mars, they like have more technology and have grown to be like better warriors. And the people on the asteroid belt are seen as like the hicks and the rednecks and are spit on by everybody. But then a comet comes by that has like new life on it called the proto-molecule, I believe. And every time somebody's like, oh, we're trying to figure out what's on this like frozen body in space, I'm like, don't do it. It might be something bad. Like it might be alive. But anyways, it's cool. It's a good show. But yeah, I'm curious what they might find. I'm scared of what they might find out there.
I love space exploration. I remember I did my junior research paper on that, and I had a lot of fun doing it because we do devote a lot of money into this. Mm-hmm. Just billions of dollars goes into space exploration and everything like that, just to kind of discover like who we are and everything like that. And it's just kind of fun, even if we do discover an alien.
It's a mean alien, but
you don't know that. It might be okay.
Wasn't it Stephen Hawking who said that we should probably be a lot quieter than we are with space, because if we do run into aliens, it's probably not going to be friendly. It's probably going to be more like when the Europeans came to the Americas and we're the Native Americans.
Oh, God.
So interesting. Anything
Did you find any? That's all I had on it.
I think that's about. Yeah, I think that's more than what I had. I was learning more about the Oort cloud as well. I thought that was interesting. And yeah, I think that covers it all. So I get a +1 point here for being like Raj, because they say, if you haven't found anything, what have you been doing for the past 6 months? And Raj has been, what do you say? Checking his email, Facebooking, and messing with
Wikipedia entries.
Not to mention Netflix now streams. So this is when Netflix first started streaming movies online, and apparently he's watching stuff. But I had a flashback to high school. This is going to make me sound horrible, but I tried my best. I signed up for a program with my friends over summer, and we did like in the mornings for like a couple weeks. We did like a business class, and then in the afternoon we did an internship. And I had one friend who did an internship at like a car dealership or something, and he learned about the accounting of car dealerships. I have another friend who, I don't know what he did, but I ended up doing it at a coffee service, like not a coffee kiosk, but a service that delivered coffee to offices. Basically, when you have an office and you need to order like a coffee machine and coffee for it for your employees, you don't go to Home Depot to do that, or Walmart. Usually you put in an order and it gets delivered to you, especially like those big machines that are like a Bun, BUNN or whatever, the industrial ones. But like, I don't think anybody was really prepared for me to be there. And so like I went, and like the first day they had stuff for me to do. The second day I helped stock stuff. The third day I like couldn't find anybody so I just like sat there. I think the fourth day I didn't even show up. And the fifth day I came back, and I just found my way back to the warehouse and started stocking stuff on my own, and like didn't know if I was doing it. Like,
so I need to find something to do.
And like yeah, but there were a couple days like I couldn't find anybody. I like just sat there like, look. And it was before cell phones or Facebook, so I wasn't checking my mail, but I think I brought a book and read for a while. So I can totally see Rod's point of view.
I did something like that at one of the restaurants that I worked at. Like, it was a golf course, so in the wintertime, it was dead, of course, because no one's playing golf in the wintertime.
Yeah.
So it's like, well, I have nothing to do. I've already done everything. So I remember plowing through every Narnia book. Just plow through them, and man, that shit gets weird.
Yeah.
But anyways, yeah,
Um,
we do our best to be good employees.
yeah, we try. I definitely get a point for being like Raj here because Sheldon says that's unethical, but mandatory skill if you're going to become a pirate. That made me laugh as well. But yeah, so Sheldon would definitely not do that. But sometimes, I mean, you can't find the people to do the work you're supposed to do, and I don't know. Raj says that he can't go back to India. It's hot and there's too many people. So they have to brainstorm how to keep him in the country. And I like this. Penny shouts through the door, why doesn't he just get another job? So she's been listening the whole time.
Oh, I love that.
Raj whispers to Howard. It's funny, too, because this comes back into play at the end of it, where it's not Penny listening through the door, but Howard listens later. And... Howard looks at Raj and says, why would you ask me if you could talk now? Because
how would I know that? Yeah.
There's a girl listening, so does that mean
yeah.
you can't talk or not talk? We flash forward there at the cafeteria, and Raj says he's going to miss beef. And he says that the Mumbai McDonald's doesn't have Big Macs. They have a chicken Maharaja Mac?
Maharaja Mac.
Maharaja. And I did some research on this, and I know we've done some research into fast food there. But
Domino's and Pizza Hut.
Yeah.
I looked into this one too.
Did anything specific on the Maharaja Mac. I looked at mcdelivery.co.in. So what I found, this is basically true. I mean, I do an IQ point later about Hindus not eating beef, but since beef is not eaten, in some places it's considered a crime to slaughter cattle, you see a lot of chicken dishes and a lot of vegetarian dishes. Cheesy Italian vegetarian, cheesy Italian chicken, chicken and cheese sandwiches. They have one that's like a corn and cheese burger, which was apparently, it used to be called American Cheese Supreme, even though it was like a corn patty. In the Maharaja Mac, which according to their description is chunky, juicy grilled chicken with jalapeno, onion, slices of cheese, tomatoes, crunchy lettuce, and habanero sauce. I'm going to say I would try it. I'd try it in a heartbeat. I don't know if it would take the place of a Big Mac, but it sounds like a spicy treat to me.
Dude, this menu, just like India's Domino's, this looks really good. It seems like everything is just so much more flavorful looking and sounding.
A lot of spice from what I'm seeing.
Yeah, a McSpicy paneer. I'd love to try that.
Mm-hmm. What else do you get with it?
Well, yeah, everything looked really good. Like you said, everything is chicken based or some sort of vegetarian patty, like a potato patty or just veggie patty, turmeric spice potato patty. But they also had the McChicken, but it's not the same McChicken. It's a chicken patty with peas, carrots, green beans, rice, and spices mixed in. It seemed like the only thing that they had the same as the United States was the Filet-O-Fish. Well, they actually had McNuggets too, so I'm guessing that's the same. But they have fries. They have cheesy fries. We don't got that, and they have a pizza McPuff, which kind of looks like a Hot Pocket. That looks pretty cool.
It looks like one of their McDonald's pies, but not with like sweet inside, like with pizza stuffed into the pie. I'm like, wow.
Yeah. Then they also have a sundae with a chocolate brownie.
I didn't see that.
They also have McFlurries and cones and dipped cones. And I did not see any sodas on the menu. They didn't have, in terms of drinks, they had coffee, tea, hot chais, and a McFloat, which is a cold coffee served with soft serve. It's like, why don't we have a McFloat?
Yeah. That's like, in Italian, what's that called? Like an affogato? Affogato? Yeah. Yeah. I had one the other day, and my parents were like, what is that? I'm like, it's coffee and ice cream. I love it.
It's heaven in a cup.
And, this actually reminded me, I wanted to share this with you, but I just read that, I don't know if there's a new Godzilla movie out, but McDonald's in Japan is doing a Godzilla theme for their Big Macs.
Are there two coming out? I feel like there's two. Oh, no, wait. Or is one of them King Kong? Because I know Godzilla -1. And then I think is there another King Kong? Because I know the bad guy is like a giant orangutan. So it's a giant monkey kind thing. So it's like, oh, is that the Godzilla? Because I remember, because I kind of started watching Monarch, and then it got me wondering, it's like, with all these movies coming out, it's like, how does everything tie in together? So I was trying to find some videos on YouTube to kind of break it down and explain, but there really isn't a lot out there right now.
Is there one where they have to actually team up? Godzilla and, like, in the last one, they fought each other, right?
But then they teamed up at the very end.
So I don't know, but they have 3 Godzilla burgers. One of them is like 2 teriyaki patties, which is pork, not beef. Kind of like a Big Mac, but teriyaki beef pork. One's like 2 chicken patties, and I believe with like a spicy sauce. And then one is like a beef patty with like a hash brown on it. And I'm like, I would try that. I would try a hash brown on a hamburger. I've never tried that, but
why does every other country have a better menu than us?
Right? They do like exciting things with their menus. I don't get why we don't get we get McRib like once a year in the
garbage.
Yeah, I had it when we had it a couple months ago. I don't know why I did that to myself.
It's like a breakfast patty with barbecue sauce. Fuck off.
It's very chunky. like I don't know. There's chunks. And we have the St. Patrick's Day float or smoothie.
Oh yeah, the Shamrock Shake.
Shake, which I'm always sad because it's mint flavored, and I always expect it to be Irish cream flavored, a little whiskey and cocoa. But yeah, McDonald's doesn't go
that would be better,
right? I would.
Yeah.
Man, I always get it hoping, but it's always a letdown. So.
And yet every year you still buy one.
I always
maybe
buy
this
one.
is the year it'll be Irish cream.
And then, like, I'm going to get it, and it actually tastes like Irish cream, but, like, nobody admits to it. Like, no, that's mint, right? What?
No, I'm pretty sure this is mint. Gotcha.
They've, like, specially made me just one milkshake just to throw me off. Okay, so, anything else about McDonald's in Mumbai?
Nope, that's all I got.
I want to travel just to try McDonald's food. We are left out. All right, so Leonard says he'll find another job, and they sit down with Sheldon. And I like this because I get 1 point for being like Sheldon, where Sheldon says to Raj that he's either sad or nauseated, but can't read facial expressions. And I was thinking about this the other day, that when somebody's upset, I just assume they have gas. Because, like, they're either upset or they're gassy. I don't know, but can't read facial expressions. Thinks Raj.
I feel like you've already done a Sheldon point like that. That sounds kind of familiar, or was it something similar? You might have some overlap at some point.
I feel like, I get to make up the rules, but I think we can do overlaps. I feel like
boom, overlap.
The same things, and it becomes a main thing of the episode, or partially main thing. I feel like I can count it. It gets like double down. It's basically double downing on the same.
It's trait. A double down.
Yeah.
Wasn't that? Wait, was that a McDonald's thing?
Double downward. Like a horrible medication. Take this. You're gonna be down twice.
I swear it was. I gotta look that up. What was the double? Or is that Wendy's?
Where's that blackjack?
Oh, it was KFC. The double down. It was the 2 chicken patties.
Oh, that or the sandwich?
Yep.
Oh.
Judge's ruling. We're double downing.
Double down in it. We're KFCing this.
Yep. We're KFCing the shit out of this.
All right. So, Raj asks what Sheldon's eating, and he says that it's pasta, beef, and a tomato-based sauce. And Raj says he thinks he'll miss beefaroni the most of all because he's not going to be able to eat beef. And Leonard asks why Hindus don't eat cows. And Raj says that cows are gods. And Sheldon corrects him and says cows are like gods. And Raj says not to tell him about his own culture. I like Raj's position. And I think Raj just kind of like says stuff to, get the conversation going, explain it as easily as possible. But from my understanding,
yeah, he's definitely shorthands. I think he does understand and he does know, but he's just like, I don't want to get into it. This is just, yeah.
That's exactly right. And Sheldon is acting like he doesn't know, but I think he does know. But the IQ point, why Hindus don't eat beef, according to Vegetarian Society Mortius.com, the notion is that, and I've heard this from several people as well, that it's not that cows are gods. It's that Hinduism sees mothers and the state of mothership as like very high, a high level. Basically, if you're a mother, it's like being a goddess, right? And so cows are seen as maternal and provide milk, like mothers provide milk. And so they see cows as the same level as goddesses because they are motherly and bountiful for humans who rely on them for nurturing. And it also talked about in the, Vedic scriptures, the Vedas, it is often portrayed, killing cows is often portrayed as a sin, and apparently that scripture has played into the laws as well, and so in some places it's actually illegal to kill cows, not just considered a sin. So it's not just don't eat them, but killing them is also problematic. And it also mentions Lord Krishna is a deity who grew up as a cow herder. It mentions that he's often portrayed playing an instrument for milkmaids. And that his name, Lord Krishna is also known as Govinda or Gopala, which actually translates or means to protector of cows. So it's the god, the deity, is seeing cows as a special high class as well. But again, not gods themselves, but as a high state of being. Doesn't want to get into it.
Yeah, I guess if we're being very literal, Sheldon is correct. They are not viewed as gods. They are very sacred, though. It's kind of like what you said. The cow is a symbol of the mother and the divine caregiver.
It reminds me of Groundhog's Day when Bill Murray goes, "I'm a god," and she goes, "You think you're a god?" And he goes, "Not the god, a god."
Lowercase.
Lowercase. A god. Lowercase.
Yeah. Yeah, it's also, I looked into this too, and it's also just because cows are a much more complex life form as a mammal. So they're also multi-purpose. They provide dairy and fuel. That's right, fuel. But that's just a whole other deep dive in itself. So it never made sense to Hindus to eat cow. It's like, why would we get rid of like this multi-purpose tool? Like, why would we just eat it when it does so much?
Yeah. I mean, in the U.S., we see dogs and cats the same way. That like we see them as a higher life form than chickens, right? Because they are our friends. They supply personal benefits, personal.
Well, last episode support. We established that chickens are assholes.
They are, yeah.
So fuck them. I'm gonna eat. Yeah, I'm gonna eat it.
I'm gonna make a chicken mac out of them.
Yep. I'm gonna double down that.
Double down that chicken mac. All right, so Howard comes up and says he has a job opportunity, and Sheldon mentions like that's a happy face, right? And Leonard's like, yes. And so Raj follows Howard to Professor Laughlin's office.
Laughlin? I thought it was Laughlin. Yeah.
I have written down Laughlin.
Yeah. So I think it's pronounced Laughlin. Or is it You thought it was... I'm pretty sure it's Laughlin, not Laughlin. Yeah.
I think he's laughing. And we have guest star Oliver Moorhead. And I looked him up. A lot of smaller roles, but I actually know him from one of my favorite movies. there's a movie called Like Crazy. Have you ever heard of it?
Mm-mm.
Small independent film, but it's got Jennifer Lawrence in it, like from before she was famous, or maybe when she was starting up. Like, do you know Winter's Bone? Like one of her first movies.
Oh
like,
yeah,
that time.
That was great. Yeah.
So it's like nobody knew who she was, and it took like 3 viewings before I realized that's Jennifer Lawrence. Like, wow. It had Anton Yelchin in it. He wasn't quite a bit. He was in Star Trek, right?
Yeah, he passed, didn't he?
Yeah, his car backed up into him, right?
Yeah, we talked about him before.
And it has Felicity Jones in it, and it's about Felicity Jones is a British exchange student studying here in college, and she falls in love with Anton, and they start a relationship, and she breaks her visa, and stays longer than she's supposed to, and because of that, when she goes back home, she can't come back to the U.S. And they're in love, and they try to make the relationship work long distance, and he doesn't want to move over to Britain, and she can't get back to the U.S. And so they they get married because they think that marriage will fix the problem, but it doesn't. And so she starts seeing other people, he starts seeing Jennifer Lawrence, and they're still kind of trying. It's so sad and frustrating, but Professor Laughlin, Oliver Moorhead, plays Felicity Jones's father, and he has some good lines. I'm like, I know who that is now. So highly recommend if you want like a really like depressing, sad rom-com, like something that just guts you and like the world's a terrible place. And seeing Jennifer Lawrence before she was really known, it's good. Also, Felicity Jones is fantastic. Which she was in Star Wars. What is that?
Yeah, she was in Rogue One.
Rogue One, that's what it was. Yeah.
Yep.
She's great. So that was the first one. And Raj doesn't admit that he's giving up on his Trans-Neptunian planets. He says that in a perfect world he could continue, but he couldn't pass on this opportunity to work with Professor Laughlin. And Professor Laughlin offers him sherry, which he has like 2 big bottles, and he's just pouring it in. Raj like,
just
early.
Chilling on the cart, like right there in the beginning.
Right.
Like, this professor knows what's up.
Oh man, as a professor, I don't think I could get away with that, even with tenure. Wow. So he holds off, but then Dr. Millstone comes in. Professor Laughlin brings in Millstone. Millstone is Elizabeth Boogish, and she's been in a lot of stuff too. My number one thing was Scrubs. She played
Me too. Yeah.
JD's girlfriend for a couple episodes, but she was a counselor, right? Who was addicted to pills, so he dumped her. And this twist was just so hilarious. I actually had to pause it, but because it's a woman, Raj can't talk to her, and so he immediately just clams up and shakes her hand, nodding without saying anything, and quickly pours himself a sherry.
Fantastic.
And he's able to talk to her, but ends the conversation with, "We could talk about this more in my hot tub," because he always gets cocky when he's drinking too.
Oh yeah.
Would you like to talk about it more in my hot tub? And that's cut to black. We are back at the.
I like how he looks at Professor Laughlin. Like, so when do I start?
When do I start? Oh, that was great. And at the apartment, we realized he didn't get the job. And he says it's probably because the professor is British and Raj is Indian. And they just haven't gone along since Gandhi, right?
Yeah.
So Leonard says they could file a complaint. Raj says, "Oh, the complaint's already been filed."
Yep.
I don't know why that scene made me laugh so hard.
It's amazing. This is such a good episode.
It really is. Complaints already been filed. Would you like to talk about it in my hot tub? So he asks if Howard will where am I? Visit him back in India, and Howard's response is, "It's kind of long. We can meet halfway, but that's 600 miles off the coast of Japan, so they couldn't do that. We'll just Skype." And so that says something about the friendship, but also that's a 16-hour flight. That's a long ways.
It's long, yeah.
Sheldon comes in and saves the day. He has got some extra money from the school and can have Raj work for him. And they start getting the fight with him, for him, and the difference between that. And Raj says he would rather die a slow, agonizing death rather than working with Sheldon. And Sheldon says, for me, not with me. So, some divide there. And we are at Sheldon's office, and Raj has reconsidered the job offer, but he has demands. He wants to be treated equal. He wants to be contributed when anything is published, and he can never be lectured on Hinduism or his culture. Sheldon rejects all his demands, and Raj says he's left with no choice but to accept the job.
Yeah, I like the negotiation tactic. Like, oh, those are all very reasonable. I reject them all.
You've left me with no choice but to take the job.
But it just sets up the interview.
And sits him down and starts giving him, asks him, is that how you dress for an interview? A job interview?
Yep.
And, yeah, Raj is starting to question it, and bazinga, it is a joke. Sheldon, I didn't give myself a point for that, but I do respect Sheldon's bazinga there, because he had me going as well. I really thought
that was a really good one, yeah.
Yeah. And then he says, I'm your boss now, you may want to laugh.
Yeah. You will laugh at my jokes.
I have to pretend... That's something I can see me saying to my students, like, I'm your teacher, laugh at my jokes.
Yeah.
I didn't give myself a point, it was just something I was considering. I did appreciate that. Back at the apartment, Penny and Leonard are finally alone, and they decide to get a little bit naughty and slide over to Sheldon's spot to make out. But Howard comes in and interrupts. He has nothing to do because Raj is busy with Sheldon, the same reason they're by themselves. And he comes in, even though it's clear that they are doing something, and sits down to watch Sex in the City with them. And Penny's kind of offended at his tone about it, says she loves the movie. And Howard says, well, maybe they can get all their periods to sync. And I thought that was kind of, there's enough other laugh out loud jokes in this episode, but that one kind of was like, Also, I haven't seen Sex in the City, so I guess I don't know I know what it's about. I just haven't seen any of it or the movie.
I actually watched all the series when it was not out, because it was out like the the late 90s. Mm-hmm. So I actually watched it in college when I was able to download them. And honestly, I really enjoyed it. I guess as a young person in my early 20s, I was like, wow, sex in every episode. That's cool. And then also because I was also learning about relationships from the female perspective. Mm. That's kind of how I looked at it. So I was like, oh, I feel like I'm learning a lot. And it's funny because my wife and I started rewatching it last year because she wanted to watch it. Well, one, it didn't age very well, and two, I realized how kind of dumb it is. It's like, oh my god, what is happening right now? It's like, I can't believe I liked this before. This is not going well.
I used to laugh at this.
So sorry, but yeah, it's like, oh.
That's I was talking to a friend about Love Actually over the holiday break. I watched Love Actually, and he's like, that movie didn't age well. I'm like, some parts didn't, but some parts I think still hold up. But one instance is they body shame a woman, and they say she's fat, and they keep making jokes about it, and she's not fat at all. So it's really hard.
No, she's beautiful.
Yeah. Process I like her attitude, and I like that the prime minister is interested in her. I like the relationship, but the jokes about her being fat, I'm like, I don't see it. So it's weird.
Yeah,
but I don't know if that's because body shaming has become such a big issue, and we've talked about it more in the world and society, or if it wasn't funny back. I don't know, because I don't remember. I remember when I saw it originally, I was in college, but I don't remember laughing at that part or remember my thoughts on those jokes or...
Yeah, I kind of remember. I remember being very confused. I was like, she's not bad at all.
Yeah.
Like, so why would they even throw that in there? I know they're trying to make it seem like she's not a viable candidate, you know, to be a love interest. That's what they're trying to do. But I feel like they could have done something else. But I feel like, you know what? We already have so many other storylines going. Let's just throw it in.
Yeah. And I like a lot of the storylines. I think it gets a bad rep. I think it gets a bad rep because it is a solid feature that... I don't know. I feel like if something's good, people like to criticize it very heavily, and it can't necessarily support itself. So, you know, like Braveheart. Braveheart gets criticized all the time. It's a great movie. It has its issues, but people like to criticize really good stuff. I don't know. Maybe Love Actually isn't that great, but I thought it was pretty good, and I think that's part of the reason it gets such a bad rap. Plus, Liam Neeson...
I feel like I think it's part nostalgia too. Like we liked it when it came out, so we kind of just follow along every year. It's like, well, it's just this tradition that we always watch it. And maybe it isn't that great, but you know what? Whatever.
And I also had a problem. You know, I'm going off on a rant now, but Rick from Walking Dead gets criticized for stalking Keira Knightley, but technically she stalks him first. She comes to his apartment and lets herself in, pulls out film footage without his permission, and he's kind of saying, no, please go away. And she just watches it, and, you know, he did film footage. He filmed the footage and taped it together like he wanted to, but he wasn't stalking her. He does go to her house afterwards. He doesn't barge in on her. He has signs up and explains himself. And I think he does it casually, and he does it maturely and tastefully. So
I never took him as stalking her because that was footage. It was all footage from the wedding that he was just, unless he was doing that on his own. But it was established that he would make the video for them, and that's why he was recording everything. So it's like, it's not like he was being a voyeur.
And then he found himself like, I recorded a lot more of her than I should have because that's who I cared about. So I don't think it wasn't like he was peeking in on her changing into her wedding gown. It was during the wedding celebration.
Yeah. Well, that's on the other side of the tape.
Yeah. Part B. Flip the DVD over and
and there it is.
The bridal suite. Okay, Rick, you went too far. So that's my rant. That I don't get, you know, why he gets such a hard time, because I feel like if somebody lets themselves into my house and starts pulling out movies from my wall without my permission, I have a bigger problem with that than showing up with signs saying, I love you, I will deal with
and
it.
she ate the good pastry too. What the fuck?
Yeah. Keira Knightley, we got beef.
Yeah.
McDonald's beef.
Yep. It's a beefaroni.
We're gonna double down on this. All right, so where was I? Oh, Howard comes in watching Sex and the City. We are back at the office, and Raj and Sheldon are designing an experiment looking for annihilation spectrum resulting from dark matter collisions. And I would say this is my failed IQ point of the time, because it's as easy as it sounds, I guess. It's the notion that when dark matter like hits each other and it starts to disintegrate or decay, there's this notion that it will give off not information, but material that we can see, that as dark matter hits and breaks down, the ramification of that's going to give off gamma rays or something that we can see. And so they're looking for how they can calculate that, how they can record it and understand it. So, nothing. It sounded fancy, but I guess it wasn't that fancy. And Raj makes the jokes, says that they're gonna need a flashlight because it's dark matter. And Sheldon says he's the boss. He'll make the joke, but he doesn't have time for a joke right now.
It's serious business. This is no time for jokes.
It's no time for joking. Although he made a joke about the bazinga about the job interview.
Well, he's the boss. Jokes are on his terms.
Yeah, and they have to buckle down, and it flips to a work montage playing "Eye of the Tiger," and this did make me laugh because most of it's just them staring at the board, and they're taking naps on the ground, and then they're staring at the board again. So appreciate that. We are back at the apartment. Penny and Leonard are walking out of the bedroom, and I like that he thanks her for having sex with him. She goes, "You don't have to thank me every time we have sex." He tells her to throw away the card that he sent her in the mail. And they turn, and it turns out that Howard is making them breakfast. And that he heard their finale, heard their big finish. Bravo! Leonard tells Howard that they need some alone time. Howard apologizes for being the third wheel and leaves. And tells him that there's more food in the oven, more food in the fridge, that he's made this really nice breakfast, right?
It's funny because he said that he made them eggs and salami, which is funny because he's mentioned that in the previous episode too. That like after sex you have eggs and salami. It's like, why would you? Who would do that?
It's a protein fix, right? Building up your protein.
Yeah, protein and fat. You need that to replenish, not carbs.
Not carbs.
He calls it the perfect meal after lovemaking, which is like, I don't know about that.
But I wouldn't turn it down. I mean, salami. And then he has like bagels toasting, and he has like what some
lox.
Some lox in the fridge. Yeah. So
yeah,
he
went all out.
He went all out. That's better than a Tur-Briske-Fil.
Yeah.
Penny asks if they are terrible people and ask if they should bring him back. And Leonard agrees and says, "Howard, come back." And Howard jumps back in. So it's kind of a double play because Penny was listening previously. And we were aiming to think that Howard's just creepy, like hanging out there. But Penny did it too. So it's just part of the group, right? And we go back to the office, and Raj and Sheldon are in a disagreement about the experiment. And Raj mentions that if they could argue in his native language, that he would be kicking Sheldon's butt. Sheldon points out that Raj's native language is English. So technically, yeah.
I did a couple IQ points there. Yeah. So I did... So in their argument, they're talking about that Raj knows better because he's the astrophysicist, and astro means space. But then Sheldon says, no, astro means star. So in a literal sense, since Sheldon likes to be literal, yes, it does technically translate to star, but it's derived from the Greek word astro, and that definition is star or celestial body or outer space. So using the term star is actually means space to the ancient Greeks. So technically they're both right.
They go hand in hand with each other.
Yep.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm. And then did you do an IQ point on English as English as the native language to Raj?
I didn't. I figured that with British colonialism, it became the native language, but I didn't do any research on it.
That's what I wanted to do some research on, if that was actually true. And honestly, I could not find anything to support this or to really explain what that comment really meant. Because he's from New Delhi, and Hindi should technically be his native language, since all of his family there, we pretty much have established in his background that he was born there, he lived there, he was raised there. So technically, English wouldn't be his native language. But what I thought that this meant is that Raj comes from a very wealthy family. So I thought that the joke was that he was rich and privileged, that he didn't need to actually learn Hindi. But that doesn't really make sense because if he was born in New Delhi, he would have grown up speaking Hindi and using English as a secondary language. So I kept deep diving into this,
Yeah.
and I found this on latg.org, Wikipedia, and worldatlas.com. So the most popular language in New Delhi is Hindi, and English has been a secondary language by many in the population, but still only around 25%. But most of the population does have some sort of familiarity to English. The percentage of English speakers is even lower in the rest of India, which sits at about 10 to 14%. But I actually found some conflicting articles on that. However, English is one of 22 official languages of India and is used by the Indian government for communication, along with modern standard Hindi as enshrined in the Constitution of India. So there is a growing culture of English speakers in India, or should I say Indian English, which is just the two languages merging together, kind of like how there's Spanglish. But based on all the research, English is still overshadowed by many other languages of India. Bengali and Marathi are second and third, respectively. So even though English is an official language of India, many people still don't speak or understand it. And there's really no evidence that it's the elites of New Delhi that speak English over Hindi.
Huh.
So to sum this up, I really don't know why English would be Raj's native language, especially since they never established when he came to the US.
Yeah.
So I still don't really understand that comment. So if anybody else
listening,
out there,
yeah, I'm curious. More information on that, because I was thinking it's kind of like Norway or Sweden, where they have their own languages, or even like Iceland. Icelandic is such a small language; everybody speaks English there. So technically, they have their own language. But even when I tried taking a beginner's course in Swedish, and I love it. I think it's a fun language. I'm horrible at learning languages, but they're like, you don't need to know this. Everybody in Sweden will speak English. I'm like, so
it is kind of
yeah. So I was thinking it was like that, but from what you're saying, it's not. That English is actually pretty not rare, but 20%. Did you say?
25%, but then even then, it's more of a familiarity with it. It's not like that common.
So Raj basically calls Sheldon's ideas all caca, poop, right? And Sheldon commands Raj to stop writing on the board that he's a superior in every way, and Raj is trying to write and fix the equation a little bit, and Sheldon's not having it. And Sheldon says that he's better, and Raj asks if he can do this.
Yep, the old finger trick.
The finger trick. Basically, what do you even call that? Making your middle fingers go between your hands?
You finger yourself. Is that not what you call it?
Self-fingering, yeah. And Sheldon can't do it. He can't finger himself. He tries.
Yep, many times.
And so Raj goes away, and they're both kind of mad. And now we are at Raj's place, which I don't think we've really spent much time at Raj's. This is the first time I remember seeing even part of the inside of his place.
Oh, maybe it is. Yeah, I don't recall.
I
guess I've seen the series so many times that it's like, oh, I did not put a note into when we actually see his apartment for the first time.
Maybe we have. I could not recall. I'm like, oh, that's new. So Sheldon's knocking, doing his knock, Raj. And Sheldon admits Raj was right and asks him to come back. Basically, it's his form of apology, right? And Raj has conditions, but Sheldon rejects them all. And he says he has no choice but to take the job again. And Sheldon needs a ride home. He's like, how'd you get here? He's like, I walked. And he's like, why can't you walk home? There's a big dog. And so on the ride home, they have to think about how to optimize a detector for 500 GeV particles, which is, from my understanding, giga electron volts particles. And this was kind of above me, but yeah, basically, yeah, measuring the voltage of electrons, right? Miniature stuff. And giga means 1 billion, so whatever. Did you do any research on that? It was kind of above my head, and
Yeah, that was above me that I didn't even bother.
yeah, it was basically just a form of measuring energy and electron movement. And then there's a montage of them walking away, and Eye of the Tiger starts playing once again.
Yep, dramatic slow walk away.
I loved this episode. I'm going to be honest. I thought there were uh, extremely funny parts. I like the development with Raj and him finding a new job and now working with Sheldon, which hopefully they don't just ignore. I would like it to come back, maybe not as a problem, but at least be mentioned again that he's working with Sheldon, some development and how they interact with each other and their careers going somewhere. But
Yeah, you still have to wait and find out.
I laughed my ass off.
Yeah.
I laughed really hard.
Great episode. I really enjoyed this one. I watched this several times in preparation of this. Well, that was it. We did it.
Oh, yeah. We went up 1 on each side. We are at 73 to 76. Me being like Sheldon at 76.
9? Let me recount that again just to make sure.
Fair.
Yeah, we have 9 IQ points on this guy.
Not a bad haul.
Yeah, this is a long episode, so thanks for tuning around or for sticking with us, everyone.
There's some good stuff in it. I mean, they had the science stuff that was like, yeah, that makes sense. I just, it's above my head, but some fun stuff too, like Mumbai's McDonald's.
Yeah. That, like, all the food ones are my favorite. The granted, I don't know if we could really learn anything, but I feel like we did. Tur-Briske-Fil, McDonald's in India.
Makes us wonder, man, what would that even look like? I'm curious now.
I'm telling you, man, like, when you visit, if you're still planning on visiting, like, we should definitely do it.
You got to make it happen.
Yeah, like, I'll throw down on that. I mean, worst comes to worst, if it's really that bad, we'll just scrape everything off and just serve it separately.
Just 3 different sections.
Yeah.
Who wants fish? Who wants turkey? Who wants brisket?
Yeah. With our powers combined. So we actually did get a request from one of our viewers to actually start doing the Chuck Lorre Productions vanity cards. So we kind of forgot about that because we stream, so we don't actually see them, but we'll kind of try to put it on our radar now. So this is Chuck Lorre Productions number 262. All right, I need some water first before I dive into this fucker.
It's lengthy.
All right, don't fall asleep. As best as I can tell, life is intolerable. Oh, not always, of course. A case can be made for all the big wonders and little blessings and blah, blah, blah. But when you really boil it down, our entire existence rests on a few really ugly premises. First, life, and by that I mean the big life with a capital L, must ingest other life in order for it to remain life. Or put another way, in order to witness the miracle of creation, we must continually eat and then poop out. A little bit of that miracle. Second, one of the charming side effects of sentient life is emotional pain. The fact that dead and fermenting plant life creates alcohol, a terrific anesthetic for emotional pain, might cause one to think that this is, by nature, a compassionate universe. Think again. Keep dulling that pain with booze and you wind up, if you're lucky, in a church basement sharing your tears with complete strangers. If you're not lucky, you wind up on a waiting list for a motorcyclist's liver. And finally, there's the ever-present knowledge of death. In order to more fully appreciate the gift of life, we all get to ponder a violently sudden or slow and agonizing painful descent into oblivion. after which our beloved bodies turn into the stuff of nightmares. Which brings me back to my original premise. Life is intolerable. But rather than go gently into that creepy night, I've decided to start a petition to protest the fundamental conditions of existence. I know it's not much, but it's a start. And damn it, I'm just the guy to do it. The petition is available at chucklorre.com. Sign on now and make your voice heard before you're dead and your vocal cords are being eaten by a swarm of disgusting bugs. The end. This is literally I've always seen them at the end of the episode, like when I was actually watching it on air and everything like that, but I never actually paused it and read them. I just kind of saw it and was like, okay, whatever. But now it's like, this is...
It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, where at the end, like after the credits, you hear something being said backwards, and it's usually something like, why are you still listening? Like if you flip-flop it, but it's like, nip, nip, no. Yep, nip, 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 no.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Oh.
I mean, I watched It's Always Sunny, but it's like, I never really put notice into that.
Yeah, if you ever watch the credits at the end, like, you hear the three guys, like, saying something backwards. Dennis, Charlie, and, what's his name?
Mac,
yeah.
Yeah.
And it's, every season it's something different, but it's always something completely benign, like, why are you listening? Or
like, why are you still here? It's yeah. But yeah, I mean, maybe we'll read more of these.
I'm gonna keep an eye out now. Like, I'm curious. Like, holy shit, I've missed like almost 3 seasons worth of these.
I know, we just kept forgetting about them just because, like, yeah. But we'll try to read these.
Yeah.
Some of them are interesting. Maybe we should check out chucklorre.com.
Oh no!
All right. Well, anyways,
that's not a petition; it's a cult.
Yeah, the cult of Chuck Lorre. He is our god. Lowercase g.
Lowercase g.
All right. Well, that's all we had. Well, thanks again for listening. Don't forget to follow us on Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok at Theoretical Nonsense Pod. Email us at theoreticalnonsensepod@gmail.com, and we will see you next time when we talk Season 3, Episode 5, The Creepy Candy Coating Corollary. Thanks again.
Bye.
This was Theoretical Nonsense, the Big Bang Theory watch-along podcast. No PhD required. Our intro and outro music is by Alex Gore. Thanks for listening. It's heaven in a cup.